if you've got people in your team who are resistant, then what you want to do is not focus on them, but focus on the others and find little small examples of change happening. So there's a really good book called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. Can I just check how many people are familiar with that book? Do you know the book? Can you just type in yes or no in the chat? By Chip and Dan Heath. Okay, so it's mostly no's, which is interesting. I reckon you should read the book because it's old now. It's probably a decade old, which is old by our standards now. But they talk about these 9 principles of making change happen. And you can read the subtitle, how to change things when change is hard. And the first one they call Find the Bright Spots. Find examples of change that's worked successfully and then highlight them. So share your success stories. So I'm going to ask you in a minute how you share your success stories so that you bring the people who are resistant, at least they can see that maybe there's a possibility for me. And if I just do something small, it might help them move to the next stage or the next stages. Okay, so I'll give you 2 examples, 2 simple examples from my clients. One was one that takes a little bit more work, and the second one is something that can take almost no work at all because you've probably got the infrastructure for it. So this first one was an organization that does a whole bunch of community services. They do aged care, childcare, disability services, and I did an innovation program with their leaders. And normally what I do is I'd ask an organization, if they're doing this leadership program, to send me 1 or 2 people from each department, and I work with them over 3 or 4 months. This CEO said, look, don't worry about that. Why don't we get all the leaders together and we'll run some innovation program. So I won't go into all the details because the point I want to make is that we had 2 sessions. They came together the first day, and they were using AI for this. They came together, each department came up with an AI project, and then 4 weeks later we had our second session where they pitched that project to the rest of the group, rest of the leadership, and also pitch it to senior management to see which ones that were worth funding. And it wasn't like only one gets funded. The CEO said, look, if they're all good, we'll fund them all, right? And one came from this childcare team. So they would take 3 hours every time a new child got enrolled. It would take 3 hours to write up a development plan for them. And they came up with a way of reducing that from 3 hours to 15 minutes. I won't go into the details because it's not relevant today, but then they shared that idea at our second session. And then when they said any questions, somebody from the aged care team said, look, I don't have a question, but can we talk to you later? Because every time a new resident enrolls, becomes a resident at one of our homes, we need to write a support plan for them. We can take your idea and adapt it. And then the HR team said, can we also talk to you? Because we don't... we have a similar situation. We don't have a formula or a template whenever we get a new employee and we're writing a career plan for them. It takes a long time. Can we adapt your idea? So it's I loved the original idea, but I loved even more that this leadership team shared it and other people picked up on that idea. Now, none of them were resistant, but the sharing of ideas made it easy for other people to pick up on and for them to create change faster than if they were just doing it themselves. And the second example is a simple one. This is another client I was working with. They were doing innovation and being more customer centric, all really good stuff. And they had an online, basically an online suggestion board. And the idea was that if they wanted something done from another department, they'd post it to this online suggestion board, and somebody in the other department would pick it up and say, I can do this, and they'd do it. So you might see the problem with this. Like, people are so busy doing their own stuff that they didn't have time to pick up other people's stuff as well. They were going to get rid of it, and I suggested a slight tweak to it. I said, instead of doing as a suggestion board, why don't we adopt the bright spots idea and use it as a success stories board. So anyone who did something and it worked, they'd post. And like all these bulletin boards, people would have these likes and shares and comments, and it worked really well. And it showed other people in the organization ways that ideas that worked. And sometimes they could adopt it, and even if they couldn't adopt the idea, they just saw a lot of people doing positive things in the organization. Okay, and it just changed their thinking. And so, what are you doing? What are you doing? How do you share success stories in your team? And I'm really interested in you sharing in the chat. How do you share success stories in your team? What's your method? Is it getting people together and asking people at the start of a meeting, share anything positive that you've done this week? Is it having an online bulletin board like this organization did? What else? What are you doing? Okay, I'm just going to stop and give you the chance to do that. How do you share success stories in your team? Yeah, it's got team meetings from Rob and from Alison. Sophie, great. Share a win section of our team meetings. I don't think it was the organization that I did that with, even though we worked together. Team face-to-face meetings, great. And I reckon that's a really simple thing to do, right? Just start your meeting by going, anyone got any positive stories to share? Yeah, so Steve, you're right. So MS Teams chat is exactly like those bulletin boards. They weren't using Teams at the time, but they were using something else, but exactly the same idea. Great.